Hello, everyone. This time, I would like to share with you my screen, so allow me to share with you a PowerPoint presentation that I have prepared to discuss this topic. So, welcome to For This Class channel. So, this time, I would be discussing with you about the legal basis of gender and development. When I talk about the legal basis of gender and development, these are actually the laws that were enacted as a foundation of what we call gender and society or gender and development. This particularly includes the CEDAW law, the Magna Carta, Republic Act 7192, the 1987 Constitution, and the BPFA, or what we call the Beijing Platform for Action. But first, before we are going to discuss these laws, I would like to present to you a definition of what we call discrimination against women as being presented under the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, or what we call the CEDAW law. As you can see in your screen, discrimination against women is being defined under CEDAW as any distinction, exclusion, or restriction made on the basis of sex. So ito ay kahit anong klase ng pagkakategorize, pag-exclude sa isang bagay or sa isang or lalong-lalo na sa isang oportunidad, eh, just because of the sex. Eh, Like for example, sa isang restaurant, kung you want to eat in a certain restaurant, and when you go inside the restaurant and have some your orders, the restaurant or the service crew would tell you that you are not allowed to make an order or to eat in that particular restaurant because you are a woman or you are female, and that restaurant is only designed for or open only for men. So you are being deprived of your right to be fed on a pleasant restaurant just because of your sex. Okay, that is a kind of distinction or exclusion. Another example, Chris, is like for example in a certain shopping mall wherein you are going to take a pee or you wanted to urinate, and when you get into the comfort rooms, you can't find any comfort room for women. All of the comfort rooms are only designed for men. Okay, or if there is a public what do you call this, public comfort room, and when you try to enter you are being uh, stopped because you are a woman. Okay? That they cannot give you another reason of not being allowed to enter that particular comfort room other than the reason that you are a female. Then that is one of the kinds of discrimination as defined under the said law. For as long as such distinction, exclusion, or restriction that is made on the basis of your sex, okay, affects your enjoyment or exercise of your right as a human, your freedom, mm, in the political, economic, social, cultural, civil, or any other field in the society. So the convention or the CEDAW law particularly defines discrimination against women as all forms or all kinds of distinction or exclusion that is being made by virtue of your reproductive processes, like for example a male or a female. Okay? Kung yung pagproprohibit sa'yo para gumamit ng isang palikuran ay walang ibang dahilan kundi dahil ikaw ay babae or dahil ikaw ay lalaki, then that is clearly a discrimination under the CEDAW law. Why? Because it impedes or it hinders or it prohibits the enjoyment of your right as a human being. Okay, so that is what we call discrimination against women. And as you can see on name alone of the CEDAW or the organization, it's implicated or clearly being stated that it is a convention. Convention means an agreement. Okay? An agreement on the elimination or eradication of all forms of discrimination. So ang purpose ng CEDAW is to put an end to any kind of discrimination that is being done against women. With respect to men, I do not know if there is some kind of discrimination that men have the experience. Maybe there are, but they are not just being vocal as to how and as to the manner that they are being discriminated. That is why the law is silent with respect to discrimination against men. If you are very familiar with one of the situations or one of the news report made sometime uh, last year in 2020 or 2019, I guess, you just go backwards for at least 2 to 3 years from now, right, there was a controversial issue with respect to a certain member of the LGBTQ who tried to urinate in a woman's comfort room, and a lady guard stopped him or her, okay, because according to the lady guard, he is still a man. So he is not allowed to use the comfort room for women because this person is a gay, right? He has the reproductive organ of a male, okay? But he used to portray himself as a woman by using a dress, using makeup. Okay, he puts on makeup and he uses stilettos, okay, which is apparently classically or traditionally being used by women. So nakadamit siya pambabae, naka-lipstick siya, mahaba ang buhok niya, naka-stiletto siya or meron siyang heels, high heels, and then she tried or he tried to enter the comfort room for women to take a pee or to urinate. So the lady guard saw him and stopped him. The lady guard prohibited him to enter the comfort room, to use the comfort room for women, because according to the lady guard, he is still a male person, so he cannot use the comfort room that is designed for women. Okay, so it went viral on the social media because it went to a point that the lady guard called for a rescue, and they get or they send the gay out of the shopping mall because this gay or this person tried to defend himself to the lady guard to the point that they had already a heated argument, or there was already an altercation between the guard and this person. That is why some other peace and order guards or security guards came to let that person out of the mall. That is why this became an issue in the social media because the gay or that person uh, take his qualms or his grievances into the social media. So it was addressed, and some of the organization that protects the LGBTQ uh, kind of sexuality already made a what do you call this a petition, right, on social media addressing the or calling for the attention of the lawmakers to fight for their freedom as humans, because according to them, even if they portray themselves according to how they feel that they are, which is different from what they really are, mm, that is the right according to them. Okay, so these are the conflicting arguments between the LGBTQ community and the those who are considered as straight like us, okay? Those who are recognize themselves as male and female. Okay, so another one aside from the CEDAW, okay, another law that had been founded or had been enacted to protect or to promote what we call the rights of the LGBTQ or the women, right, I should say, right, is what we call the Beijing Platform for Action or the BPFA. So the BPFA includes is an agenda. Okay, it is a actually a forum, or a convention, another convention that tackles an agenda for the women's empowerment that aims to remove again all the obstacles to women's active participation in all sphere of public and private life. So in CEDAW law, what they addressed is the eradication of all forms of discrimination against women. Under the Beijing Platform for Agenda, their focus or the stress on the eradication of all kinds of hindrances in the active participation of women in all sphere of public and private life, because according to them, equality is a matter of human right and a condition for social justice. So according to the Beijing Platform for Action, social justice is can only be truly attained, okay, or makukuha lang yan if, okay, if uh, human rights, okay, if there is equality of human rights, and if you say equality, that the rights given to the male should also be the same with the rights that are given to female. Okay, so it is where now in BPFA that women are allowed to take the political arena, to run in the public office, run in a private life as leaders of the country, leaders of organization, leaders of cultural communities. Right? They are already included in political decision making. This is the beginning of women empowerment, okay, BPFA. Okay. Of course, we cannot miss the fact that one of the supporters of the promotion for women empowerment is the 1987 Philippine Constitution, or what we call the Constitution of, or the fundamental law of the Philippines. Okay? So it highly sponsored the principles of gender equality by recognizing the role of women in nation building, and provides both male and female the equality before the law. Now, this is where the conflict often arises, because what is included only in Article 2, Section 14 of the 1987 Philippine Constitution is two sexes. So both sexes refers to male and female. So there is an equality before the law with of both the male and the female sex. The problem now comes when you talk about the LGBTQ community. So saan sila ngayon mapapabilang dyan? Okay? So you have to decide on your own whether you will include the LGBTQ community here or not. But the framers of the laws, yung tagagawa ng mga batas natin, always had the intention, okay? Okay, let's go deeper. Kahit sabihin na natin walang nakalagay dyan with respect to LGBTQ community, the law is very, what do you call, positive. Okay? So, yung intention ng mga tagagawa ng batas is always for the good of the citizen. So, the LGBTQ community are members of the citizens of the Philippines. They are members, they belong to the Philippine state. In that sense, that even if their sex Okay? Their sexuality is not being mentioned on this article. This equality before the law that was mentioned in Philippine Constitution, it still covers the LGBTQ community. Why? First, because if you talk about human rights, they are considered humans. Like you cannot consider them as animals. Okay? So they are humans. Next one is that the intention of the framers of the Constitution is to benefit, or that the law shall benefit all citizens of the Philippines. And apparently, the LGBTQ community is part of the Philippine state, and they are considered as citizens of the Philippines. So you cannot take them out of the context of equality before the law. So hindi lang yan para sa babae at sa lalaki. Baka sabihin nyo sa akin, ma'am, kasi ang nakalagay sa Philippine Constitution, sa Article 2, Section 14, yung equality before the law lang is for both sexes, which is male and female. Oo, tama kayo. Pero you go deeper doon sa intention ng mga gumawa ng batas natin. Ang intensyon nila is para sa benepisyo ng lahat ng miyembro ng Pilipinas, lahat ng residente ng Pilipinas, lahat ng kanyang citizen. So if you consider the LGBT community as members of the Philippine state at sila ay citizen ng bansang Pilipinas, then you apply also to them the equality before the law, or what you call human rights. Because whether you like it or not, the LGBT community members are still human. Mga tao pa rin sila. So why do you exclude them? Okay? Well, in fact, there was no what they call specific exclusion as to them. Ibig sabihin, wala naman din nakalagay dyan. Oo, tama kayo. Both sexes, babae at saka lalaki. Pero wala rin namang nakalagay sa batas na they are excluded. Okay? Walang specific na sinabi yung batas that the LGBTQ community are being excluded on the phrase equality before the law. So if there is no specific exclusion, then you have to include them. That is the presumption of the 1987 Constitution. Presumption that you can stretch the law. Okay? The arm's length of the law can be stretched out. Okay? Pwede mong i-adjust ang batas para ma-accommodate yung purpose niya to serve social justice, na magbigay ng hustisya. Kasi kung i-exclude natin yung LGBTQ community sa tinatawag na equality before the law, nasaan ngayon ang tinatawag nating hustisya? Okay. If you talk about human rights, nasaan ngayon ang hustisya? Nasaan ang human rights kung i-exclude ninyo or hindi nyo isasama ang members ng LGBTQ community? Okay? And so gender in society does not only speaks of male and female, you include also the LGBTQ community. Okay. Now, so those are the legal bases. So meron pang mga ibang legal bases, but those are the three major legal bases, okay, fundamental bases of gender and development. Okay, so let's go to the influences of gender development. So, ano-ano ba yung mga bagay-bagay na nakaka-impluwensya or nakaka-apekto sa isang pag-develop or pagbuo ng gender ng isang tao? We already said before that gender is not our sex because our sex is fixed. You talk about our reproductive processes kapag sex. But if you talk about gender, it is the way you portray yourself to the community. How do you feel about yourself? How do you think, or how do you see yourself, so that others will also see you in the same way that you see yourself? Okay, how do you portray yourself to the society? That is your gender. So ano ba yung mga bagay-bagay na nakakaapekto sa pagde-develop natin ng tinatawag nating gender? Okay, we have the biological factors. Sabi nila, the influences on gender behavior, yung the way we portray ourselves is being affected by the changes on our biological factor, changes in our body. Like for example, a person from child having a transition to pubertal change. Yung nagsisimula ka palang magkaroon ng breast, nagsisimula palang uh, nagkakaroon ka ng mga hairs, pubic hair or mustache or uh, nagsisimula pa lang na uh, mag-mens yung babae or the menstrual period or menstrual cycle. In that stage, when you are having the transition from a child going to teenager or from teenager going to matured person or adulthood, okay, there is a change also not only in your physical feature, your physical body, but also there is a change on what you call your gender behavior. So, nung bata ka pa, wala lang sa'yo yung kahit wala kang takip sa katawan, naliligo ka sa labas ng bahay. You don't feel ashamed. But when you go and change into teenager, nagsisimula ka ng mahiya. So there is already a behavioral change on you. Okay, nagkakaroon na ng pagkakaiba or pagbabago sa iyong uh, pag-uugali. So nakikita yun ng ibang tao na dati walang pakialam yan, ngayon nagiging mahinhin na siya. Okay? Why? Because you realize na kailangan mo ng takpan yung katawan mo. Nahihiya ka nang makita nila yung kaibahan ng katawan mo ngayon kaysa nung bata ka. In the same way na pag dalaga ka, okay lang na mag-shorts ka ng maigsi, okay lang sa'yo na body fit yung damit mo, okay lang din sa'yo na mag uh, mag-brashier ka ng may pa-XX pa sa likod, 'di ba? Yung mga brand ng mga babae, yung mga brashier ng mga babae may pa-XX sa likod. Kung minsan hindi mo maintindihan yung design, nasa harap ang lock, nasa likod ang lock, nasa side ang lock, or kaya walang lock, isusuot mo lang as just like a t-shirt. So, dati naman pag dalaga ka ganun. Pero as you go and to maturity and change from uh, teenager to adulthood, nag-iiba rin yung behavior mo. Okay? So, ayaw mo na yung mga maarte na klase ng damit. Ayaw mo na yung masikip. Ayaw mo na rin ng maigsi na damit. Gusto mo na mahaba. Kasi nahihiya ka nang makita nila yung legs mo na or kaya yung kulubot mo ng mga skin. Kuya, ayaw mo na rin mag-body fitting kasi hindi mo na maitago yung mga bilbil na lumalaki. Kasi as you grow older, yung metabolism kasi ng body, okay, yung katawan natin is humihina. Okay? Sa paghina ng metabolism natin, nai-stack up yung mga fats. Even if you try to burn it, mas marami pa rin yung nai-stack up kasi humihina yung metabolism ng mga tao, especially sa mga babae. Kaya minsan, sasabihin nyo, yung dalaga yan, ang sexy niyan. Bakit kaya ngayon, 40 years old pa lang siya pero may bilbil na siyang nakikita? Okay? So, wag na kayong magtaka, class, kapag nakakita kayo ng ganun because that changes is natural as a change on your biological or physical feature. Okay? And simultaneous or kasabay ng pagbabago ng ating katawan, okay, or ng ating itsura ay ang pagbabago ng tinatawag nating behavior. Okay, so your gender behavior, the way you portray yourself to society will also change according to the stage where you are in. Okay, now there is an idea coming from Sigmund Freud and Erikson. Okay, they said that anatomy is actually destiny. Human behavior is directly related to reproductive processes. So anatomical differences affects psychological differences. So sabi nila, yung in-explain natin kanina, yung ugali ng human, okay, is directly related to our reproductive processes. So yung pag-change ng ating reproductive process ng katawan natin, okay, nag-change din ang ating behavior. So anatomy is destiny. Anatomical differences affect psychological differences. Meaning to say, na pag change yung katawan natin, physical feature natin, the same way, nag-change din yung human behavior natin. And at the same time, the way we think, okay, also differs. also changes. So, tatlo na yon. So, nag-change ang body feature, nag-change din yung gender behavior, nag-change din yung psychological, okay, behavior natin. So, there is already a psychological differences. Iba yung pag-iisip mo nung bata ka. Halimbawa, nung bata ka, attracted ka sa color yellow. Nung medyo nagdalaga ka, attracted ka na sa color pink. So, lahat na lang gusto mo pink. Pink na bag, pink na shoes, pink na panty or undies, pink na bed sheets. When you grow into adulthood, ayaw mo na ng pink. Kasi na-realize mo ang hirap labhan, madaling madumihan. So, gusto mo na dark colors. Okay? So your psychological difference and the behavior, okay, the way you decide things also differs. Noon, kapag nung bata ka, pag may naisip ka, ginagawa mo na without considering the consequence. Nung naging medyo teenager ka, medyo sabi mo, ito pag nag-decide ba ako ng ganito, magagalit kaya yung nanay ko o hindi? So medyo nag-isip ka. Okay? Now, when you go to adulthood class, the psychological difference would be, ay, kailangan kong desisyonan ito. Yes or no lang to. Okay? So, you think of the consequences. Pag ginawa ko to, ito ang mangyayari. Okay? So, ito na lang ang magiging decision ko. Between option A and option B, B na lang. Okay? Mas madali sa iyo ang mag-decide. So, the psychological behavior of a person, okay, also goes with the changes on his gender behavior and his physical changes. Okay, that is what we call the biological factors that affects our gender development. Okay, so what other factors? We also have what we call the social and environmental factors. So dami. So what are social and environmental factors, class, that would affect your gender development? Culture, yung kultura natin. Halimbawa, kultura ng mga Kalinga, naturally we are hospitable, okay, according to books that were written, okay, articles that were written about the Kalinga tribe, we are hospitable. So kapag may dumaan na tao sa harap ng bahay mo, sasabihin mo, halika, magkape ka muna. Okay, that is one of our culture. Now, if lumaki ka, class, na ganun ang nakakagisnan mo or nakikita mo na kultura, when you grow older, you will adapt that. Okay, gagawin at gagawin mo rin yun kasi naging parte na siya ng kultura natin. Okay? So, hindi mo yun maiaalis sa paglaki mo kasi nakagisnan mo yon, nakita mo yon. The only option for you is to continue the practice, to continue the culture. Okay? So, minsan, pag may dumaan na bisita, kahit ayaw mo sanang tawagin na magkape kasi wala na kayong pambili ng asukal, wala na kayong pambili ng kape, nag-iisa na lang, yun na lang yung natitirang kape doon sa lagayan nyo, nag-aalangan ka kung tatawagin mo pa siya o hindi. And then you will end up calling that person na magkape. Bakit? Because of your culture. Okay? So the way we want to portray our gender, our culture. So yung development ng gender natin, it goes with our culture. Okay? Hindi naman pwedeng lumaki ka tapos yung practice mo is practice ng ibang kultura ng mga Tagalog samantalang ikaw ay lumaki bilang Kalinga. So, ang nakikita mo nung lumaki ka, kultura ng mga Kalinga. So, that will affect how you portray yourself to other people. So, pag pumunta ka ng Katagalugan, sasabihin nila, ay bakit kaya yan laging, ang ganda ng ugali niyan kasi laging tinatawag akong magkape. Hindi nila alam that is already a part of your culture. Okay? So your gender development, okay, has been affected by what we call yung kultura natin. Another one, parental influence. This is the greatest influence that you may have. Okay? Bakit siya nagiging social at saka environmental factor? Bakit hindi sa biological to napunta? Kasi class, sa biological factor, what you inherit from your parents is only your genetics. Yung genes lang. Yun yung nasa biological factor natin. Okay? But with respect to social and environmental factors, you talk of parental influence on discipline, on practice. Like for example, nakikita mo na kapag dumarating yung tatay mo o kaya bago umalis yung tatay mo papuntang trabaho, hinahalikan niya muna yung nanay mo at sinasabi niyang, "Ma, aalis na ako," or "Ma, andito na ako." Okay? So, eh, you try to mimic that. That will have an influence to your gender development. So, paglaki mo, magiging sweet ka. Yun ang tendency. That would be the greatest tendency na ikaw ay magiging sweet. Bakit? Kasi nakita mo yung factor na yon. Okay? Nakita mo doon mula sa iyong parents. Okay? So that is the influence of your parents. You try to mimic or you try to copy, okay, the deeds or the things that you have seen from your parents. Okay? Kung yung tatay mo mahilig maging stricto, okay, there is a tendency na pag you portray yourself also as a disciplinarian or a strict person or a serious person outside your home. Why? Because that your uh, parents' attitude influences your own gender development. Okay. What about your peers? Peers, mga barkada mo. Usually, sa panahon ngayon, hindi na to uso. Bakit? Because of the pandemic. Dati, before the pandemic, uso to, peers. Nagiinuman kayo, o lumalabas kayo, you have a parang reunion or weekend gathering sa mga kasama. Pero ngayon, medyo limited ang paglabas-labas. Meron man siguro, pero not that often. Okay, so yung peers, anong naitutulong ng or ano naman ang impluwensya ng inyong mga kasakasama? Not necessarily barkada, not necessarily friends, pero mga kasakasama mo sa araw-araw. Eh, ano ang naitutulong nila or impluwensya nila sa'yo? Minsan, sa mga peers or sa mga social groups, ang nakukuha natin yung mga mannerisms. Okay, yung mannerism, kung napasama ka sa grupo ng mga mahilig mag-rap, yung kamay nila at saka yung mga ulo nila nagke-headbang, okay? So, baka mamaya, when you also sing in front of other people, naghe-headbang ka rin. Okay? That is an effect or that is an influence coming from your peers to your gender and development. Okay? Not only the mannerisms, some also of the attitude of your peers. Like for example, may kasama ka dyan na mahilig na maniko. Okay? So yung mga gestures nila, nakukuha mo nang hindi mo namamalayan. You adapt them because it really influences you. Okay? The way your attitude or your behavior, okay, will be developed, it depends sometimes on your culture or in your parents' influence on your peers. Sometimes it does not only depend on the three, but also on school. Okay, meron din tayong nakukuha or our gender development is also being affected by our schools. How are you being treated in school? How are you being taught, right, or taught in school? How does your teacher treat you or guide you inside the school? What are the things that you can adopt from your school that would actually influence your gender development? Halimbawa, sa isang classroom, criminology class, dadalawa lang ang babae. Dadalawa lang ang babae, halos lahat, halimbawa sabihin natin 45 yung estudyante. So, 43 sa kanila lalaki, dalawa lang babae. Anong magiging tendency? The tendency would be, yung dalawang babae na yon magiging lesbian. Or, if they will not turn into lesbian, they will act as if they are men or they are males. Why? Because their gender development is being influenced by their peers in the school. Another one, bakit yan marunong sumagot? Bakit si letter A marunong sumagot? It's because inside the school, siya yung lagi yung tinatawag. Siya lagi yung tinatawag. Nahasa siya. Okay? Ibig sabihin na uh, she was sharpened. His mind is being sharpened inside the school because she is often called during recitation. Siya lang yung sumasagot dahil siya lang tinatawagan. Will that be a disadvantage? If he will take or if A will take it negatively, of course, that would be uh, disadvantage to him. Baka ang tendency niyan, may magpapakamatay or depression. Okay? But if he will take it positively, then that was very good. Magiging sharp ang kanyang mind at sasabihin niya, magaling yan. Okay? Kasi laging tinatawag sa school. Okay, so marunong nang sumagot. Kahit sa amoy sabak, out of the school, marunong na kasi he was trained inside the school. And his behavior outside the school, okay, is already a portrayal or a reflection of the things, okay, of the attitude, the behaviors that he learned or he adapted from the school. Okay, mass media. Sa tingin ninyo, yung social media may epekto ba sa mga ugali ng isang tao or on the development of the gender? Yes, there is. There is a big factor. Like for example, yung mga bata ngayon, minsan wala nang yaya ang mga 2 years old, 3 years old na bata ngayon. Ang yaya nila, yung tablet, yung cellphone, yung TV, Nickelodeon, Nick Jr., Zumo TV, yan. Nanonood na lang sila. Okay, sometimes, yung pinapanood nila would really have an effect on the development of their gender. Halimbawa, yung bata, pinapanood lang niya laging Dora the Explorer. Okay? Lalaki siya. Iyon lang kasi yung nasa channel ng TV, Dora the Explorer. Tendency, later on yan, ang actuations niya, tutularan niya yung acts ni Dora the Explorer. Okay? Sometimes then, may mga news. Like for example, kapag hindi naman bata, let's say tayong mga adult, yung nababasa natin sa social media, sa news reports, sa napapanood natin sa TV, like, usually it affects our gender development. Like for example, puro patayan